Hudson Card returns for his second year in the Purdue offense, and Purdue looks to hopefully try and push for a bowl game this season. The schedule is not really favorable for that, as they do have to play four AP top 10 teams, but the rest of the Big Ten schedule and their non-conference not being too terrible aside from the game against Notre Dame, there's maybe a chance that with an upset or two, they could find their way into a bowl game. Week one starts off pretty easy for Purdue with Indiana State, and they do have a bye week to prepare for an incredibly difficult matchup against Notre Dame. The Fighting Irish are going to be a very talented team and definitely expected to win that game against Purdue. But Oregon State the week after is a game where a lot of people are already writing off Purdue. I wouldn't do that so quickly. This is a decently experienced Purdue team. Like I mentioned, this will be Hudson Card's second year in the offense, and Oregon State lost a lot of players to the transfer portal after players started to realize that they were going to be one of two teams that was left behind in the Pac-12. Oregon State, unfortunately, was one of the two teams that was unable to find their way into a Power Four conference. So they will be playing a Mountain West schedule this year. Purdue is by no means a great team, but they definitely should be able to compete in that one on the road. The next two games are going to be tough with Nebraska and Wisconsin. Nebraska is definitely a team that a lot of people have on the rise this year. I do think this might be the season where Nebraska is finally able to break back into the top 25. Year two under Matt Rule is typically when most schools that he coaches make a big jump from their previous season. So this is a very exciting year for Nebraska fans. The game is at home for Purdue, but this seems like a really winnable game for Nebraska. So unfortunately, probably one Purdue isn't able to get. The week after at Wisconsin's another really tough game. It'll be a defensive matchup for sure. Wisconsin's definitely going to be favored. They're going to run the ball a lot. They're going to play a lot of good defense. It's going to be a real tough one for Purdue to win. I wouldn't completely count them out of it, but we definitely do like Wisconsin more at home than Purdue on the road in that one. And finally, before that Oregon game, we do have that road trip to Illinois. Illinois is going to be a decent team. I do think they'll probably be favored in this game, but I would expect Purdue to make this one pretty close. Illinois is going to be playing some pretty decent defense, but it's nothing that Purdue can't handle, I don't think. This will be a really good game. I wouldn't be shocked if Purdue came away with a road win before that Oregon game. Now, the Oregon game is on a Friday night, and we really don't expect Purdue to compete much in that one. Oregon is a very, very talented team. I know some people are probably going to make the joke about Oregon being a top five team and the game being at home for Purdue, but we just can't quite see that happening this year. Obviously, nobody would predict that. Um, but hey, you never know. Purdue's done it before. Maybe they'll shock the world again. Following their second bye week, a home game against Northwestern should be a pretty fun matchup. This is a Northwestern team that a lot of people are writing off this season. We think they might be able to get to 4 or 5 wins, maybe push for a bowl game. They're in pretty similar territory as Purdue, except Northwestern doesn't have a home stadium. This one should end up being a pretty close game, and if Purdue wants to make a bowl game, it's probably going to be a must-win for the Boilermakers, especially with Ohio State and Penn State coming up the two following weeks. Very tough back-to-back games there. We really just can't see Purdue winning either of those. Michigan State and Indiana are both on the road to close out the season, and both of those are definitely winnable games for Purdue. So just looking at it as a whole, those last two that I just mentioned, Northwestern, Illinois, Oregon State, and Indiana State, all winnable games, but they're going to have to win every single one of them if they want to hit that 6-win quota to make a bowl game. So Purdue does have 6 home and away games. And with 5 of their opponents being ranked in the rank and file top 25, they have an overall schedule difficulty of 7.5 out of 10. Moving on to the official prediction. Like I said, Indiana State should be a pretty easy win, so they will be 1-0 going into that Notre Dame game. However, that is where they'll pick up their first loss of the season. We cannot see the Irish dropping that one, even though they're on the road. But we like Purdue to bounce back with a road victory over Oregon State. The Beavers are going to be slight favorites in that matchup. But we do like Purdue to pull off a pretty decent road upset, and that might start to derail Oregon State's season for the rest of the year. Now, Nebraska and Wisconsin, 2 really tough games. Those we did give Purdue the loss in. I expect they'll compete for a little while, but we can't quite take them to win those, dropping them to 2-3 before they bounce back up to 500 at Illinois. Should be another close game, but we do like Purdue on the road here. Now, unfortunately, this is where the schedule gets a lot tougher. 3 of their next 4 games are against top 10 teams. Oregon can't really see that one as a win, and neither can we see a win against Ohio State or Penn State. Northwestern could maybe be an upset that Purdue pulls off, but we did go with the Wildcats there, and we took Purdue to win the last 2 against both Michigan State and Indiana. So they do fall just short of a bowl game at 5-7. If they can win the Northwestern game, I think they can get there. But other than that, there's really not another winnable game on the schedule for the Boilermakers. The projected record sits a lot lower than what we predicted, a full win lower at 4-8. FPI's right smack dab in the middle of our predicted and projected records, 4.5 and 7.5, but only a 0.7% chance to make the playoffs, which makes sense because Purdue would have to pull off a lot of top 10 upsets. So thank you guys so much for watching. Please make sure to like and subscribe, and we will see you in our next video.